Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Melissa Siegel and I'm a professor of migration studies. This is a channel about all things migration. Today we're continuing with our country case study series looking at Afghanistan, and specifically now we're looking at the situation of migration in Afghanistan today. If you're interested in the history of migration or migration policy in Afghanistan, please do check out those other videos. I'll link them up here and I'll put them in the description below. So if we jump right in and look at where current migrants are today, if you have a look at this current pie chart, you can see the immigrant population by main countries of destination as of 2019. And what you can see very clearly, which we also saw in the history video, is that the majority of Afghans today are located in Iran and Pakistan. There are also smaller numbers in Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Australia, the United Kingdom, Sweden, Austria, Belgium, Germany, the Netherlands, Canada, and the United States, as well as some sprinkled in other countries, but these are the main countries of destination nowadays. If we look at this immigrant population by age and sex, you can see that it follows quite closely to the current situation in the country. However, this is skewed a bit more towards males. We do see more male immigrants than female immigrants today. Now, the majority of migrants abroad today from Afghanistan are refugees and asylum seekers, and here you can actually see the nearly 3 million Afghan refugees and asylum seekers and how they're spread in different parts of the world. Again, Pakistan and Iran have by far the largest number. The numbers that I'm showing here are those that are registered, but of course there are a lot that are unregistered. And this is information from the Mixed Migration Center as of 2019. So you see about 1.3 million Afghans in Pakistan, close to 1 million in Iran, close to 200,000 in Germany, about 160,000 in Turkey, 50,000 in Austria, 40,000 in Sweden, around 17,000 in France and Italy, 13,000 in Switzerland and India, where there's 12,000 in the United Kingdom and Australia, and around 11,000 in Greece. So still a very large number of refugees and asylum seekers being hosted in these countries. If we look at the overall out-migration trends in the country, you can also see here trends from 2012 to 2019. And we still have had increasing out-migration trends, but these have now been decreasing in more recent times. If we also look at the out-migration by region of destination, as more recently, again, Pakistan and Iran make up the bulk, but we are seeing more in Europe and Turkey, followed a little bit by the Middle East, rest of Asia, and then other countries. In this graph, you can see characteristics by migrant population. So you can see that migrants in the EU generally have much higher education levels than those in Iran, and it is a bit more mixed for the case of Turkey. There are also a number of respondents that also have different literacy issues, but the majority can also read and write. If we turn to returnees, so there have been a large number of returnees in the recent history. And here you can see returnees by main countries of destination, and the majority of returnees have really come from Pakistan and Iran, but also some from Europe and Turkey and the Middle East. The overall trends of return is that there was also quite a lot of return in 2016 compared to 2019 or 2018, where we did see quite a lot of pressure on return, especially from Pakistan in 2016. If we look at returnee trends over time, so some of this we also looked at in the history of migration section, but here we can see that really the largest number of returns to Afghanistan happened just after the overthrow of the Taliban in 2001. So large numbers of returnees in 2002, really until around 2017. And then we've seen smaller numbers of returnees since then, with a little bit of an uptick in 2016, mainly because of pressure from Pakistan for Afghans to return. If we look specifically just from 2016 now, around 2.4 million Afghans have returned to Afghanistan just since 2016. Here you can also see the differences in the returnees from Iran and Pakistan, and those who came through programs also that were assisted voluntary return programs through IOM and others, but especially the return of undocumented Afghan returnees from Iran and Pakistan really make up the majority of returnees during 2016, 2017, and 2018. Now, there are also a number of IDPs in Afghanistan currently. As of 2019, there were around 3 million internally displaced persons in Afghanistan, and the majority of these were due to conflict, but around 1 million were also displaced by natural disasters, and 2 in 3 people have been displaced within their home province. So the displacement wasn't very far, but there was clear displacement. Armed conflict and terrorist attacks continue in Afghanistan, making it the primary reason for internal displacement. However, Afghanistan is a country prone to environmental disasters such as earthquakes, flooding, landslides, droughts, and others, which also often force people to be displaced, often over shorter periods of time than conflict, but are still important sources of conflict. There's also been protracted conflict together with the environmental degradation and insufficient investment in disaster risk reduction strategies contribute to the increasing vulnerability of the Afghan people to environmental shocks, which means they're more and more prone to being displaced because of environmental disasters. On average, natural disasters affect 200,000 people per year in Afghanistan. In this graph here, you can see the number of IDPs per year. These are mainly because of conflict-induced reasons, and this is information from UNHCR in 2020. You can see, again, really large numbers of internal displacement between 2000 and 2005, but increasing numbers of internally displaced people between 2010 and this current time. Human trafficking is another important area of concern for Afghanistan currently. Afghanistan is a source, transit, and destination country for men, women, and children subject to forced labor and sex trafficking. According to the 2020 U.S. Department of State report, the government of Afghanistan does not fully meet the minimum standards for the elimination of trafficking and is not making significant efforts to do so. Traffickers specifically targeted returnees for forced labor in agriculture, brick kilns, and carpet weaving. In 2019, Turkey deported nearly 24,000 Afghans, while most were migrant smuggling victims. Traffickers had previously forced some to work in Iran or to fight in militias in Syria. International organizations documented cases of IDPs selling their children to local shopkeepers into servitude to repay debts. Some traffickers targeted indebted IDPs for forced labor and sex trafficking. Some intermediaries and employers abroad forced Afghans into labor or sex trafficking. Some Afghan women and girls who were sold to husbands in Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iran, and India were exploited in sex trafficking and domestic servitude by their new husbands. Some Afghan parents forcibly send boys to Iran to work to pay for their dowry in arranged marriages. And Afghan boys and men are subject to forced labor and debt bondage in agriculture, construction, and primarily in Iran, Pakistan, Greece, Turkey, and the Gulf states. But traffickers in Iran, including Iranian criminal groups, exploit Afghan children in forced labor as beggars and street vendors and forced criminality, including drug trafficking and smuggling of fuel and tobacco. So really, human trafficking is a major issue both internally and externally in Afghanistan of Afghans. If we turn to a more positive note, remittances, or the money that migrants send back to their families and friends in their countries of origin, so in this case Afghanistan, we can see that remittances to Afghanistan have been increasing over time, especially since 2017 in Afghanistan, but already since 2008 and earlier. Remittances have been a very important lifeline and source of finance in Afghanistan for decades. I hope this just gives you a quick wrap up of the current migration situation in Afghanistan. Again, if you're interested to learn more about the history of migration in Afghanistan or also the policy and governance situation, please do see those other videos. Otherwise, thank you for joining me this time. Please do share this video and the whole video series if you feel like there's others that could benefit from it. Otherwise, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of my other videos. And I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.